Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with This Week in Cannabis News from December 20th to the 26th. So before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And then, of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. Then there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the fastest growing industry in the US, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you're ready. And we're going to start with this news from Akerna, business intelligence software that predicts US shoppers are expected to spend $373 million on cannabis in preparation for Christmas and New Year's celebrations. So I think this is quite positive to see, as we've seen other predictions in the past be quite high, and then we've actually seen results surpass those predictions. So they're predicting $370 million for the Christmas long weekend and then the New Year's 4-day long weekend. So for the breakdown, pre-Christmas shopping, consumers are predicted to spend approximately $87 million on Thursday, December 23rd, and another $97 million on Christmas Eve, Friday, December 24th, totaling $184 million for Christmas preparations, while Christmas Eve is predicted to be one of the top 5 sales days of the year. Versus pre-New Year shopping, Thursday, December 30th is projected to gross $89 million in sales, while New Year's Eve, Friday, December 31st, is predicted to bring in $100 million in cannabis sales, which would then make that the second largest cannabis sales day of 2021 and bring in total sales for the 2 days of $189 million. While the largest sales day of 2021 was 4/20, the unofficial holiday. Adding the days leading up to Christmas and New Year's have historically been 2 of the top 5 cannabis sales days, and I expect to see this trend continue, says James Arendt, business intelligence architect at Akerna. As holiday gift shopping continues to face supply chain and shipping issues, shopping at your local cannabis retailer is a terrific way to avoid slowdowns while supporting a local business. And you make some great points there. Definitely want to support any small mom and pop shops around you if you can, but I do look forward to seeing how many Americans did vote for cannabis with their dollars, and I imagine those that did are going to have a more of a holly jolly and green holidays than those that didn't. On to this news from New Cannabis Ventures, as Michigan cannabis sales increased 66% in November to $153 million. So with 1 day less in October, Michigan cannabis sales fell 6% sequentially to $152.7 million in November, but still up 66.1% from a year ago. As the Michigan Cannabis Regulatory Agency breaks out sales by medical and adult use, with medical sales falling 14% from a year ago to $31.9 million, down 9% sequentially, and adult use sales increasing 121% to $120.8 million, but still down 6% sequentially. And so this is just another visual to take a look at how the sales growth has trended over time for medical and adult use. But a typical trend that we see is when a state legalizes for adult use, we will see a drop off in medical, because if a medical patient knows the type of cannabis that they need that will effectively treat whatever they're using, if they don't have to go to their doctor and wait for a prescription, and they know they can go straight to an adult use dispensary and get that same type of medicine that has the same effect, they're just going to skip the whole medicinal route and go straight to the adult use store. So that's typically why we do see medical trend down after we've legalized for adult use. But a few more takeaways from this, just to highlight that as supply chains continue, as supply continues to expand, flower pricing for adult use has seen a dramatic decline. And while for investors, we obviously want to see us retain as much profit so that we get rewarded as shareholders, we still obviously want to see some competition, which allows multiple people to, take advantage of this business opportunity, and also keeping prices affordable for those that do live in Michigan. But the biggest takeaway, I think myself, worth adding, Michigan generated $985 million in cannabis sales in 2020, and the program should continue to expand ahead as supply becomes more available and as disruption expands. And so far in 2021, year-to-date, combined sales are up 84% already to $1.63 billion, and we still have the last month of December. So I'd say that trajectory is growing strong, and we do love to see this sort of growth. So good news out of Michigan as they continue to properly supply the demand and see the benefits because of it. While if we move on to this news, as cannabis sales surpass expectations in Arizona 1 year after legalization. And so tax revenue numbers show cannabis sales in the state exceeding expectations, as the executive director for the Arizona Dispensaries Association says they initially expected cannabis tax revenue to be between $130 and $140 million for the first year of legal recreational cannabis use in the state. However, through October, total tax revenue is around $175 million. That number is going to be even bigger once the final totals are calculated early next year. So good job, Arizona, for taking initiative and not waiting like every other single state that voted to legalize at the same time as you did. You guys are seeing the benefits because you did not stall. As industry experts say, they did not expect regulations to get in place and businesses to be up and running so quickly. In terms of speed, there's no question, Steve White, president of Trulieve, said. Arizona happened faster, the regulators were quicker than we've seen in any part of the country. And to be at this pace already, with 60 calendar days left to go in terms of data left to collect, we're extremely pleased with the reality versus the expectations. Samuel Richard, executive director of Arizona Arizona Dispensaries Association said. And so this just begs the question to every other state, like, what is the holdup? We see regulators in Arizona acting like they're part of the private sector, getting stuff done quickly, and everybody in Arizona now gets to benefit because of it. But we have states like New York, New Jersey, they want to kick the can down the line and not do the work they should be doing in order to slow the process, sadly crushing any chance of opportunity for small business and minority entrepreneurs in those states. It's very sad, but when we start to see results like this in certain states that move quick, it begs the question, what on earth are regulators doing in other states not trying to move just as fast? So onto this one, as Missouri medical cannabis sales hit 200 million. So Missouri's happy to announce the total sales of the state-regulated medical cannabis program reached the $200 million mark 14 months after the first sales to a qualified patient occurred at a Missouri medical cannabis dispensary. And so this happened in June 2020. Since then, more than 300 facilities are now operating in Missouri as cultivators, manufacturers, dispensaries, testing laboratories, transporters, and seed-to-sale providers. Look at all the jobs that has provided, as DHSS is charged with providing safe and secure access to medical cannabis for qualifying Missouri patients. So far, 158,169 qualified patients and 3,283 caregivers are currently active in Missouri. So great job for allowing this to start and for seeing the benefits already. As we move on to Colorado, last one out of the states, Colorado tax revenue breaks annual record. So just wanted to relay this as Colorado's annual cannabis tax revenue, and this would be 8 years in. Hall has already reached a new high for the 7th straight year. Okay, so sorry, 7th, my bad. According to the latest date from the State Department of Revenue, as the Department of Revenue's latest monthly report on cannabis tax revenue shows that November's $32.5 million in combined cannabis taxes and fees pushed 2021's overall total past $392.8 million. That's nearly $5.4 million more than the previous record made in 2020 with 1 month left to spare. So kudos to Colorado, the first state to end cannabis prohibition in 2014, which is why they are light years ahead of other states, and they have such an excess of tax revenue that they can use to reinvest in education, infrastructure, and making the lives of the Americans that live in Colorado better, not worse, as opposed to the states that don't want to face new facts and overcome their fears to make the lives of the Americans in those states better. Onto this one for marijuana moment. Apparently, Biden has every intention of using clemency powers and is looking at people with drug convictions, White House says. Now, this was great news to come out ahead of Christmas, but sadly, Christmas has passed and he didn't end up using this power. So what was the point of even saying this if you're not going to act and do something that obviously would gain support from the American people and would agree with what 70% of the American people believe should be done anyway? So just going to play this clip from Jen Psaki, but they missed their chance.
Quick unrelated, we're nearing the end of a year, and in the spirit of the holidays, presidents often will announce pardons and or commutations. Should we be anticipating any by the end of 2022, or 2021, sorry?
I don't have anything to preview at this time. I would just reiterate that the president has every intention of using his clemency power, and there has been some reporting which is accurate out there about looking at nonviolent drug offenders, but I don't have anything to update you on at this point in time. Go ahead, Jack.
Fair enough. Well, he didn't do that. So it seems like the Dems are really trying to do everything in their power to not win any of the elections in November, which makes no sense to me, but it really seems like they're sabotaging their efforts to get reelected because they're not doing anything that people want them to do. So lastly, if you just wanted to watch this video, President Joe Biden could decriminalize cannabis and fulfill key campaign promises without waiting for Congress, and this comes from one of the writers from Marijuana Moment. So if you wanted to watch this, you can grab the link below and check it out. But it mainly does highlight a lot of what I've covered. The main thing is just descheduling. If you deschedule, you solve so many domestic problems in the U.S. with the stroke of a pen. But obviously, for whatever reason, he has not done that yet. So on to this one from Marijuana Moment, as Rand Paul mocks Democrats for failing to pass cannabis banking in annual Festivus grievances list. And I'm not even a fan of Rand Paul or anything like that. I typically try not to pick sides and just choose individuals that tell the truth and that seem as credible as possible. But he just makes some good points that are worth sharing because they're true. Pointing out that the Democrats control the House, the Senate, and White House, and we still can't get cannabis banking reform bills passed, he wrote, referencing the Bipartisan Secure and Fair Enforcement Safe Banking Act. That bill has cleared the House in some form 5 times, but disagreement among Democrats over cannabis policy priorities derailed the latest attempt to pass it as part of a large-scale defense bill. And the only person you can really blame here is Schumer. You cannot blame Republicans of the past for not passing SAFE when they could have, because Schumer had the opportunity to let the simplest version of SAFE through that would not have helped Tier 1 MSOs or might not have even facilitated uplisting, but what it really would have helped is the people that voted for him to keep his campaign promises, the small mom and pop shop and the social equity entrepreneurs. It would have helped them by lowering the cost of capital so they could get affordable loans so they could even start in the industry, and it would have made the current environment for them safer so that it would get cash off the streets so that they would not feel in danger and targets for armed robbery. So it really doesn't make much sense what the Dems are doing to themselves here, but just a few more points. This should be a complete no-brainer as so many states have legalized now and we need business to operate, he said. I would go much further and end the federal war on plant entirely but at least let legal businesses operate as legal businesses. Again, regardless of what your views are, you have to respect this last statement here because he's right. Regardless of what the Dems are saying or what their intentions are and what they're talking about, their actions are simultaneously crushing small businesses in legal states across the US. And quite frankly, that's very un-American. He adds, it probably doesn't help that the two Democratic leaders are almost as old as the movie Reefer Madness and clearly gave it 2 thumbs up when they watched it, referring to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. But the last main takeaway is that the war on cannabis is among the many dumb things Congress does, but it is by no means the dumbest, he wrote. Every year, hundreds of billions of dollars are wasted on the existing war on cannabis that is a failure and hasn't worked. And so obviously this is why we just want it descheduled so we can stop wasting so much money. But then get this, congressional analysis finds veterans cannabis research bill would come at little cost, which is so counterproductive because you know what would come at even less cost? Stop wasting hundreds of billions of dollars every year on a war on a plant that doesn't work and just deschedule the damn thing. So it's so frustrating seeing this view because this is exactly the same example of lawmakers talking, looking like they're doing something, and trying to reinvent the wheel instead of looking at the problem directly in the face and just solving it, which would be descheduling the damn plant. But obviously they can't do that because their donors pay them not to be able to look at the problem directly in the face. That's the problem, right? So a bill to require the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to conduct clinical trials into the therapeutic potential of cannabis for military veterans would have a negligible fiscal impact, according to a new analysis from the Congressional Budget Office. But again, if you just descheduled the plant, how much more money would that save? It'd be less enforcement costs, so funds could be used better, less prison costs, less opioid overdoses, less costs to the average American. So while it's beyond frustrating to just see continued incompetence, especially out of those that you entrusted to ensure that your democratic processes would keep running smoothly, it just sets the stage for 2022. And if you really want to get the freedom back to enjoy this plant, it's time for the American people to rise up, make some noise, keep putting the pressure on, and pay attention to who you vote for in 2022 in the midterm elections. On to this one from Jungle Java. She's just reporting nice inflows for the Advisor Shares MSOS ETF today. So this was a great way to end the week because obviously, as we saw the price action go down a little bit, we've seen MSOS using the cash they've had on hand in order to buy back positions, which has helped us see a few green days in a row. And it's been a minute since we've seen multiple green days in a row. So just wanted to highlight that we ended off the week on Friday, or I think on Thursday, with a cash position more than what we had to start the day. So that's positive as we finished off with 64.78 million versus 53.47 million. So clearly people saw this as an asset that they want to get their money into versus taking their money out of to end the week. So that's at least positive. Onto some MSOs as Trulieve to open their Port Richey, Florida dispensary on Thursday, December 23rd. And so this one is Trulieve's 112th dispensary in Florida alone, and it's 159th nationwide following the relocation of the Tampa Norte-Dale Mabry Medical Dispensary. So Trulieve continues to execute as well, so good job there, as Air Wellness as well announces opening of 43rd Florida location in Eustis, as this dispensary will occupy over 3,000 square feet of prime retail space in the idyllic lakeside city of Eustis, just south of the Villages, a vibrant 55-plus community widely touted as America's most popular retirement community. I have no doubt they're going to enjoy closer access to cannabis. And in February 2021, Air purchased Florida-based Liberty Health Sciences, which included 31 dispensaries across the state, and since then, 12 additional locations have opened, bringing the total number of dispensaries to 43. With over 650,000 enrolled patients, Florida's cannabis market ranks third in the nation by total cannabis sales and generated over $1.2 billion in medical cannabis revenue in 2022. While BDSA forecasts Florida's cannabis market will generate $2.6 billion in sales per annum by 2026, this is likely if they stay medical. However, the good news is that Florida is a wild card to legalize for adult use in 2022. Not saying that they will, but some of the governors are running and pushing for that. So it's possible if they were to legalize before this, we will see them get to sales of $2.6 billion a lot sooner than 2026. While lastly, Curaleaf announces that they agreed to acquire Natural Remedy Patient Center in Arizona. So Curaleaf announced that it has entered into definitive agreement to acquire Natural Remedy Patient Center LLC, a Safford, Arizona dispensary, in a cash and stock transaction valued at approximately $13 million for a single dispensary. And when you consider that companies have been paying upwards of $50 or $80 million for a couple dispensaries and then cultivation space, this seems like a pretty good deal, actually. And so the transaction is expected to close in January 2022, subject to customary approvals and conditions. Upon close, this transaction will increase the company's retail footprint to 118 dispensaries across the country. And so it is an interesting deal for them to just buy one single dispensary, but obviously it's not costing them a whole lot. However, under the terms of the agreement, Curaleaf will pay $12 million in cash, so at least they're able to spend on that, while $1 million of that is coming from subordinate voting shares of Curaleaf based on the market price during the period before closing. So a little bit of dilution will be there, but for the most part, it is being paid in cash, and that's ideal to existing shareholders of Curaleaf. So good job, Curaleaf, Air Wellness, Trulieve continue to expand even over the holidays. Well, lastly, just wanted to share this one for perspective, because I've been sharing how Curaleaf Curaleaf and some of the other MSOs are lowering their debt costs and getting interest rates of 8%. However, just to highlight, if you're a regular company, for example, Scott's Miracle-Gro, which does serve cannabis companies and giving them the equipment and the gardening material needed in order for their grows, in order to grow their plants. But what's funny is that, hey, Scott's Miracle-Gro is on a major U.S. exchange like any others. It's not treated like cannabis companies, so they can get their debt at 4%. And so if you just think they're getting their debt at 4% versus Curaleaf getting it at 8%, and Curaleaf's now one of the industry leaders in the cannabis industry, it's night and day. And once these cannabis companies are no longer discriminated against, and once we can get rid of this double standard, we're going to be able to see, tier 1 MSOs get rates like this. But I think the saddest thing is that, not passing the simplest version of SAFE is that it's the small mom and pop businesses and the small social equity and minority entrepreneurs that will never be able to get access to capital at this rate in the cannabis industry if things stay the same and remain the status quo as they have up until now. So last few stories out of Marijuana Moment. Top Maryland lawmakers file cannabis legalization referendum for 2022 ballot. So a top Maryland lawmaker has pre-filed a bill to put cannabis legalization on the state's 2022 ballot. If passed in the legislature, the following question would go to the November ballot. Do you favor the legalization of adult use cannabis in the state of Maryland? If approved, it would then be up to lawmakers to develop rules permitting the use, distribution, possession, regulation, and taxation of cannabis within the state. And so while advocates have been pushing for cannabis reform, there are at least two components to this measure that are already facing pushback. First, it sets an effective date for the legalization of simple possession about 8 months after the election, July 1st, 2023, so cops can continue to arrest people for simple cannabis possession until then, which makes zero sense. Other states have moved much more quickly, including New York, where low-level possession was immediately legalized following the signing of the Reform Bill, which is positive. We should not be criminalizing anyone, especially after you legalize it, but by not launching an adult use market until 18 months later, you do allow the black market to come in and start to thrive, which again makes no sense. And second, it would not require the legislature to allow for home cultivation, a key provision that activists have included in a draft referendum that they hope lawmakers would model. So either way, good news that this will be on the ballot. And onto this one from top Rhode Island lawmakers expects cannabis legalization bill to pass overwhelmingly by February. So all this keeps getting pushed back. Rhode Island's House Speaker says lawmakers are very close to introducing a bicameral negotiated cannabis legalization bill. And a top Senate leader says he's optimistic that it will pass overwhelmingly in both chambers when it comes up for an early vote in 2022. So just wanted to share this. We thought it was possible Rhode Island could get this done before the end of the year. Sadly, they didn't, but February is the next best thing. Actually, January would be, but better than February. And if this gets done, then obviously I will relay the news when that comes to pass. But lastly, news out of Iowa, a state that we rarely hear from, as apparently Democrats announced plan to let voters decide on cannabis legalization amid GOP resistance. So this would be great if we can get another state on the ballot for 2022. Iowa Democrats are done waiting for the GOP-controlled legislature to act on cannabis reform. So on Tuesday, a group of legislators announced that they will soon be introducing a constitutional amendment to let voters decide on the issue of regulating cannabis in a way similar to the way we regulate the use of alcohol by Iowans over the age of 2021. So if they can get this on the ballot for 2022, that would be awesome as well, as we could normalize it in another state that is, again, sort of anti-cannabis. But the effort will center on putting a constitutional amendment on the ballot. But in order to do so, the General Assembly will need to pass the proposal twice during two separate sessions, meaning the soonest voters will get to weigh in would be during the November 2024 election. So again, slow bureaucratic processes getting in the way of Americans getting the right to their individual freedom. I don't know what's happening to America, but sadly, as time goes on, it's becoming less and less like the country I grew up adoring. It also means that the Republican-controlled legislature will need to get on board with the idea of a referendum on the issue. So sadly, reform is not anywhere close, but did want to highlight that that is positive, that at least the efforts are being made there. That is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. I also want to take this time to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. I do hope you've got to spend this with your friends and family, and unfortunately, if you're stuck self-isolating like me, hopefully you've got some cannabis to keep you holly jolly through these times. But what did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Wednesday for a midweek update. Have a great week, everybody.